A mathematician makes plans to travel backwards in time through a wormhole to a parallel universe, when he can't even make it to Mars with the fastest rocket on hand today.
The Interplanetary Podcast. The exploration of space for the benefit of all mankind. Your hosts here in London, Matthew Russell and Jamie Franklin.
Oh yeah, baby Bill Gates, whoever he may be.
Legend.
Probably,
we think. Hi, Matt.
Hi, Jamie. We're in sunny Metropolis Studios in West London.
Famous for Jamie Franklin and Matthew Russell's podcasts. Occasionally, when we get together. It's great when we get together. Matthew, how have you been? You look very well. You look less stressed than when I last saw you.
Yeah, well, my car's working, Jamie.
Oh, that helps.
Yeah, it does help. We could even do fist bump. Watch, listen. Oh, yes.
That was our fists bumping. Nothing else.
Don't get many fist bumps on the show.
No other flesh bumping around here.
Anyway, we had a bit of a good conversation on Discord. They want to do the odd live Discord show.
So
we're gonna have to get some technical things going to make that happen, Jamie. Once a month, I reckon.
Probably some beer, knowing that lot.
Oh yeah, we could maybe have a beer thing. Beer ting.
Matt.
Oh, no, let's make it fine wines. Our Discord members are very much more sophisticated than beers, Jamie.
Matt, I quit a reggae band.
It was
just one thing after another.
No, you quit playing triangle in a reggae band.
Yeah, I told it wrong. It's all in the...
But Jamie...
All in the delivery.
Next week, what are we doing that's really cool?
Oh my God. So, 7th of November. Is that right? 7th?
It's going to be the 7th.
We are doing a live podcast for the second time in our history at the Space Store in Oxford.
Yeah, to celebrate that auspicious number 158. If people can write in why that's so special.
Hell of a number. Answers on a postcard. And it's going to be our Artemis special.
Our Artemis special, because there was so much coming out of the IAC this week. I thought, well, really, let's give you some time for that to all settle down, and we'll talk about Artemis and going back to the moon with whoever turns up to the Space Store. So come down to the Space Store in Oxford.
Come down, register for your ticket, go and check out. Matt, what's the Space Store website address for people who want to register?
.co?
Oh, I thought it was something like that.
Yeah.
Didn't want to say it.
Spacestore.co. Bringing space to Earth. Unlike the podcast, which is bringing the ace back into space.
I will repeat that. It's Space Store, space, and then STORE.co.
So yeah,
that's all.
So come down, join Jamie and I and take part in the fun. We have no idea who our audience is going to be down there, so we're going to...
Listen, even if you hate us, you might like the moon. You might like talking about the moon. Come down, have a chat, join in. We might even have a few experiments.
We may even do the whole thing in spacesuits.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes. Actually, that is going to be cool.
That is absolutely something we need to request. Genius idea.
Yes. So, Jamie,
right.
we got a birthday. We got a birthday today.
Whose is it?
It's a 66th birthday of Jan Davis.
Oh, she's a ledge.
1953. Jan Davis, November the 1st, Astronaut
of the Week! That was in stereo.
It was. Jan Davis.
Well, let's talk about her.
Yeah. Well,
so, she earned a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering from, is it Auburn?
Yeah, it is
Sorry
Auburn.
if I'm pronouncing that wrong.
It is Auburn, yeah.
And a bachelor's degree in applied biology and biomechanics. She ain't no slouch.
No. From the Georgia Institute of Technology, and a master's and a doctorate in mechanical engineering from the University of Alabama in Huntsville.
As a former astronaut on 3 space shuttle missions, engineer, NASA executive, industry VP, Girl Scout troop leader, lest we forget.
And the first quilter and ice skater in space.
Okay, now we need to clarify this. When you say ice skater in space, do you mean that she used to do ice skating on Earth and she went to space, or that she did ice skating in space?
I doubt she did ice skating in space. I'm going with the first one.
But with Artemis, I mean, you know how much ice is on the moon? Just saying.
Well, maybe someone will become the first person to ice skate.
It's a triple Lutz!
Maybe, but it won't. I doubt it'll be Jan Davis at the age of 66 travelling to the moon. But she's going to play a part, in actual fact. She's actually involved with building SLS, her company.
Genius.
But we'll go through a little bit more. So she started work as a Texaco engineer. So when she left doing her degree, she became a Texaco engineer, because at that time, that sort of in the sort of early 80s, there wasn't much going on in the American space industry.
No.
The shuttle hadn't started flying, and so there wasn't much call for astronauts. And if you wanted a high-paid job in engineering, then oil was your kind of place to go, particularly where she was.
Yeah.
But she was actually, I'll tell you what, she grew up in Huntsville. And that's, of course, that's like an Apollo town. It's where the Apollo missions were built. And get this, she went to school with Werner von Braun's kids.
What?
Yeah, it's actually pretty cool, isn't it?
That's mad.
In 1986, she joined NASA and was part of the Structural Analysis Division. Now, bearing in mind 1987 was the Challenger disaster. So, obviously, she was part of the team that saw all that and must have been like immediately put on trying to sort out what had happened. So in 1987, she was actually looking at re-engineering the solid rocket boosters, the one of the sort of ways that the tank worked, but not the bit that actually failed on the Challenger disaster, another part.
So she was studying am I right in thinking, so she was studying the long-term strength of pressure vessels due to the viscoelastic characteristics of filament-wound composites. It's a bit of a mouthful.
Yeah, she was working on a PhD when she'd been interviewed to join NASA, basically, and she desperately wanted to become an astronaut. So I think she interviewed in 84, but was eventually let into the astronaut in the class of 87.
Well, let me ask you this. Does she hold a patent?
She does hold a patent, yes. I don't know what that's in, but I should imagine it's something to do with filament-wound composites, perhaps.
First person to answer that on our Discord channel gets a very witty emoji.
Yeah, so what is the patent that Jan Davis holds? So, yes, so she's become an astronaut. She worked at Capcom for lots of shuttle missions, and then she gets her big break, 1992, STS-47 Endeavour, up 12th of September on the 50th space shuttle mission. 50th space shuttle mission. And she went up with her husband at the time, Mark C. Lee, who was the payload commander.
Has that happened before that? Did any husband and wife go up pre-92?
That's a good point. I think there was that instance of that before. And she was operating Space Lab and the subsystems, doing lots of different experiments. And then STS-60, which is most famous for being the first of the Mir space flights. So it's the first time, I believe, a Russian cosmonaut has flown up to space on an American spacecraft. They'd worked together before on the Apollo Soyuz missions, but this is the first time, I think, definitely the first time a Russian had been on the space shuttle. That Russian, by the way, STS-60, is a bit of a roll call of pretty cool people.
Definitely.
You've got Charles Bolden as the commander. You've got Jan Davis on her second space flight. You've got Franklin R. Chang Diaz up there as well. But Sergei K. Krikalev, he is like an absolute Russian space legend, rocket scientist. He was also stuck on the International Space Station when the USSR collapsed.
What about Ronald M. Sager?
Yeah, well, he invented the Mega Drive.
Kenneth S. Reitler?
Oh, you see, you're just bringing all these out. Yeah, Reitler was on his last on his last space flight on that particular one. Yeah, so that was a pretty full-on crew, and not only that, during that mission, apparently Jan Davis's favourite science experiment On all the missions, apparently, she grew protein crystals. And you hear this a lot.
Ah, yes, you talked about
Yeah,
this.
so protein crystals is something they do in space because of the zero gravity, because of microgravity. Crystals grow perfectly. So if you can grow protein crystals, you can work out the structure of proteins because of the way that the crystal grows perfectly. And this was the first time on the second mission, STS-60, that she was able to grow insulin. She was so excited about it, even though she was supposed to go to bed. And they were ground control. So you've got to go to bed now. And she goes, no, I've got to finish this experiment. And grew the first insulin crystal, which is a massive breakthrough in
that is incredible.
Yes, in making drugs and things like that. So that's,
I guess unless they've got control of the lights, there's nothing they can do about getting them to go to bed early, is there?
No.
Oh, come and make me.
Yeah, and like get someone from the Capcom to come upstairs.
You're not my real dad. Good work, Jan.
So that was a pretty good one. And then she went up a third time on STS-85 on August the 7th, 1997, as the payload commander, and worked a particular piece of equipment called the Christospace payload, and used the Japanese manipulating robotic arm.
Oh, that's genius. And then she was assigned to NASA headquarters as the director of the Human Exploration and Development of Space, or HEADS as you know it, Matt. Independent Assurance Office for the Office of Safety and Mission Assurance.
Yeah, and then 1999 goes over to Marshall Space Flight Center as the director of Flight Projects Directorate. And so that's like responsible for things like the International Space Station and the Chandra X-ray Observatory, which, let's face it, both those two things are pretty cool.
Let's face it.
And then after the Columbia accident, so she's been at both the awful shuttle accidents. She was named Head of Safety and Mission Assurance. So a pretty major job.
That is a big role.
But then she's retired from NASA to work for Jacobs Engineering Group and currently works for Bastion Technologies, and including the Safety and Mission Assurance Support Contract Program Manager at the Marshall Space Flight Center, like I said, as part of the... And she's currently working on SLS. So she really is an absolute legend.
Well, I'm going to doff my cap. What do
No, I think she fully deserves Astronaut of the Week.
100%. Bow down.
Yep. Do you know what her favourite food was in space, Jamie?
Crayfish sandwich.
Do you know you are really close?
You sure?
Yeah. No.
What was it?
Favourite thing was shrimp cocktail with lots of Tabasco sauce, because your sense of taste goes, and so she has lots of Tabasco sauce.
I think that me and Jan must have a bit of The Shining.
Yes, no, but absolutely. There we go.
Talking of The Shining, when this podcast comes out, it will be, well, almost Halloween, just gone Halloween. What did you get up to? Send us your costumes. Were you anything from my favourite space film,
Event Horizon.
Event Horizon, where because that is kind of a horror film set in space, right, Matt? Maybe
is.
Someone did a costume like that. What do you reckon?
I actually like Event Horizon. I think it's an underrated.
It is very underrated.
Yeah. It's better than that new Brad Pitt one.
Haven't seen it yet.
Actually,
but
very similar.
I have heard that. Yeah.
Yes, Jamie, did you see the news of the return of X-37B?
I didn't, but as you're saying it in David Bowie voice, I'm interested.
Jamie, did you see the
return of X-37B?
It's the return
Touchdown
of X-37B.
at Kennedy Space Center. The small, possibly evil baby child of the space shuttle returns after almost 780 days in space. A record of sorts.
More than a record of sorts.
Hell yeah.
780 days in space, flying around, doing God knows what. The 5th and longest mission. But we covered the launch back in May 2017.
Yeah, we did.
And do you know why it was a special launch?
Go on.
Because it was on a Falcon 9 at the time. That was a massive coup for SpaceX.
That's right.
But not only that, really, it's a coup all round, because if you think about it, that whole mission was almost completely reusable. apart from the second stage of the Falcon and the fairings. So quite a reusable space mission there. But what was it up to? Now, Jonathan, our favourite Twitter god, Jonathan McDowell.
Yes, Maccas.
He pointed out that there should be some massive alarm bells here because the US may have severely damaged a treaty declaring satellite deployments, which is the United Nations Registration Convention, where you're supposed to tell everyone that you've put a satellite up and what orbit it's supposed to be in, etc. Which obviously is there to keep outer space not a complete mess, debris-filled hellhole.
Yeah.
So with this kind of behaviour and Elon Musk putting billions of satellites up, it's not looking good. So yeah, Randy Walden, the Air Force Rapid Capabilities Officer Director, said that as well as carrying out a load of onboard experiments, the X-37B was a ride share for small sats, but none of these small sats have been registered, so alarm bells should be ringing.
That is quite strange, no?
Now, no, and you did say that this was the baby child of the space shuttle, so even though it looks like the space shuttle, it's nowhere near as big. It's literally nowhere near as big. So you imagine the space shuttle had a cargo bay that would fit the Hubble telescope into it, almost exactly, in fact, as if it was designed for the Hubble telescope stroke spy satellite.
How queer.
But no, this is more like the size of an estate vehicle, like the mighty Rover 75 Tourer.
You found a way to
get in the Rover.
Put your
Again,
car
that's twice
in.
it's appeared.
Twice today.
Twice
Just
today.
today.
In the pod.
Okay.
And yes, so those experiments were probably things like experimental sensor technology for the Air Force. So as the militarisation of space continues, Jamie, this X-37B is definitely part of the equation, a quick response, nimble vehicle that's capable of going into all these different orbits and moving around and doing lots of different things. So, very interesting indeed.
I kind of share a common thread because I'm quite nimble.
Yeah.
I'm capable of multiple orbit positions.
Yes, well, the X-37B, like I said, is the evil baby child of the space shuttle, and in some ways, you're the
evil baby child of the Interplanetary podcast. Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
Now I've got a question for you, Matt. Are you sitting down?
Yes, I'm sitting down.
Okay, I'm going to throw something at you. How do you detect a wormhole?
Well, how would you even go about detecting a wormhole?
Listen, I've been thinking about it at night, and I needed to ask you that on today's show. Sorry to spring it on you.
Well, do you know what? As luck would have it.
Wait a minute. Have you got a reply for me?
I have. As luck would
Shut
have it.
The door.
My old mate Dejan Stokovic and his pal Dechang Dai of the University of Buffalo and the Yangzhou University in that order.
What, they think they found a method?
They think they found a method of detecting wormholes.
Go on.
No, I actually really like this. So if you have a wormhole, which is essentially a black hole that has a throat that opens up into another area of space-time. So instead of being crushed down to a singularity,
yes,
you go into the across the event horizon and then through the throat of the black hole out into a new area of space-time, which is theoretically possible. I mean, just the fact that these things are theoretically possible make this whole thing tantalizing, I think. So if you've got this black hole and you have a large star orbiting the black hole, now if on the other side, in this other area of space-time, you also have a large star orbiting that black hole, then maybe the gravitational perturbations will come through. There's nothing to stop them coming through. If you can travel through this black hole, then all this flux and gravitational waves would all come through as well. So the star on our side of the black hole, of the wormhole, will be nudged around ever so slightly by the gravity of the star on the other side. So if you can find a star that orbits a black hole in such a way, then maybe you can measure these perturbations by something on the other side of the black hole, which is precisely what you could do with a beautiful star called S2. So S2 is about 15 times bigger than the Sun, and it orbits Sagittarius A star, which, as you know, is the giant supermassive black hole at the centre of
our galaxy.
Yes, and S2 gets within about 120 AU, so that's it gets close enough to be 120 times further away than the Earth is from the Sun. So actually, that's pretty close to something that is I mean, Sagittarius A star is ridiculously big, 4 million times the mass of the Sun. So this is one
that's big,
very dense thing. The weird thing is that the event horizon of a star like this is only about 6 times bigger than the Sun. The diameter is only about 6 times that of the Sun, so it's actually quite small. So that picture of a black hole makes you realise just how hard that is. You know, because it's not much bigger. In fact, it will only be a little bit bigger than S2 itself. So this black hole's tiny, and I always think, that's crazy. It goes all the way to the centre of the galaxy, and you're still looking for a needle in a haystack.
So for people who don't know, Matt, can you in one sentence explain the difference between a black hole and a wormhole? Like, why would something potentially be able to travel through a wormhole but get stuck in the denseness of a black hole?
This all comes down to maths. This is all theoretical stuff. So if you've got it's basically Einstein's theories. There's mathematical kind of resolutions for them, where you can do various solutions of his equations. And one of those solutions happens to be this wormhole.
Yeah.
A wormhole solution where it's it goes down and then opens back up again. So people have theorized that somehow that might join 2 areas of space-time.
I knew it was going to
happen. But the thing is, no one knows what's at the centre of a black hole. I mean, these things were only theorised until very recently, where we think we can see black holes like Sagittarius A star and actually photograph things like black holes. We actually had a photo of a black hole this year, Jamie.
Isn't that insane?
It is actually
without
insane.
any doubt my highlight of the year so far.
I know, exactly. Well, yeah, it may go down as one of the most important events ever. It's so annoying about that picture of the black hole, as it just felt ever so disappointing, because it's
people are like,
oh, is that it?
It's like,
but you need to understand, how hard that is to get.
Still the most amount of likes I've ever got on my Instagram account, I think, when I wrote about that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You should have done it on the Interplanetary podcast.
Well, maybe I'll read it out to you. If you carry on, I'll bring it up.
So, yes, the researchers, however, reckon that this S2, because of the way that it orbits the Sagittarius A star, if Sagittarius A star not only is a supermassive black hole, but is indeed a wormhole at the centre of our own galaxy, then equipment might be sensitive enough in the next couple of decades to be able to measure this movement in the star from what's happening on the other side in this other area of space-time.
That's insane.
I know. So it's like, that is just ridiculous, isn't it?
It's twisted my melon, man.
Yeah. So as the paper puts it, if the wormhole is traversable, then the flux, scalar, electromagnetic or gravitational, can be conserved only in the totality of these 2 spaces, not individually in each separate space. So the kind of movement has to go through, so this kind of movement has to be on both sides of the wormhole.
Sure. And that's probably a lot more likely than we think. Am I right in saying that?
No. This is super speculative.
When I say likely, I mean, if you think of all the things that are in our universe, the chances of it being out there are pretty high, isn't it?
Well, I suppose so. I suppose that the chances of there being a wormhole, I mean, the thing is, we thought that black holes were theoretical until we started spotting them.
Exactly. Okay, you ready for my Instagram quote on the black hole? History. 55 million years for the radio waves, shown here as light, to reach us. 65 billion times the mass of our sun. The supermassive black hole is so dense that it rips through the fabric of space and time. No light can escape once over the event horizon. Its pull is so strong that the gas and dust seen around the image here is heated to millions of degrees due to its speed. This image, the only one that's made possible by 8 telescopes on Earth coming together to form data as though it were one telescope, the width of Earth, proves that Einstein's theory of general relativity was right. Yes, Albert. Light bent in a perfect loop around a black hole, meaning if you stood there, you'd be able to see the back of your own head, in theory. Katie Bauman got her bachelor degree in 2001 at MIT, and now she has led the creation of the first algorithm to show an image of a black hole. My biggest achievement after college was pressing a whole packet of Starburst into a ball and eating it in one, or I almost choked. Listen to Friday's Interplanetary podcast, where an old man will weep to another old man about this. Update, I just realised that most black holes are a result of suns running out of fuel and collapsing in on itself, a star bursting. Starburst equals black holes. I won't be sleeping for a while.
Ah,
there we go. That was my post.
I'm glad you brought up Katie, because she got a really vicious backlash to people saying stuff like that, and she's come back and she's actually done quite a few interviews quite recently. They're very what an inspirational character, really. She looks a lot younger than she is.
Really does, yeah.
But she was part of a massive team. The whole team were really accepting of the kind of break. She made some pretty decent breakthroughs that allowed it to become possible, as did lots of other people.
Yeah, correct.
Basically, this kind of achievement is made by lots and lots and lots of people these days. You can't do something. That's why it's incredible, and that's why it's very hard to explain to the public just how amazing that picture is, because it's so complicated.
Yeah.
There's so many different areas of science brought in.
And years of work.
Yeah, years of work. Lots of telescopes, lots of data, lots of maths, lots of sort of data manipulation, lots of stuff in statistics, lots of stuff in lots of multiple areas of physics, science, maths, everything. So it's quite a cool story, isn't it? But yeah, so get this, Jamie. This isn't even the first time that wormhole detecting has been actually devised.
What?
Yeah, so there was a paper back in '95 by Kramer et al. That said that you could try and use the detection of negative energy. So you know gravitational lensing?
Do I?
Well, gravitational lensing, if a wormhole were to transit in front of a star, would mean you'd have a massive spike of light, then a dip, and then a massive spike. So you could look out for this 2 spikes of light with a dip in it, and that might give you an indication that there's a wormhole there as well. So now we have 2 methods of potentially spotting wormholes and giving them. So even if we find that Sagittarius A is a wormhole, it may not be traversable. So don't expect any kind of rocket ships flying through from alien worlds just yet, Jamie.
Okay, I'll calm down.
But it's still a phenomena that gravitational effects could come from another space-time. So it's insanely interesting. And of course, Sagittarius A star is interesting and very complicated anyway, but adding this into the story makes it just really amazing.
God, it's just nuts, isn't it? Thinking, where would that gravitational effect have come from? Where?
I know. And
is it our universe? Is it another
universe?
Whoa.
Yeah,
Matt, as you know, I'm a big fan of the bubble universe theory. Yeah. The theory that we are one of many bubbles, just like when a kettle boils and all the bubbles form on top of each other.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Like a hot soup.
I wonder if you could... Yeah, because you need all this negative energy to actually keep the throat of the wormhole open, so it may not be feasible. But if it is a bubble universe and it goes through to another universe, then all the sort of constants in that universe might be completely different. So that if you were to transverse through it, all your physical being might not even work the other side. I don't know, Jamie. We'll have to...
Here's what I do know.
Yes.
Our death metal record with the title track "Throat of a Wormhole" will be out before Christmas.
Yes.
Throat of a wormhole.
Right, Jamie. From the absolutely epic to the more frivolous.
And now for something completely different.
The Samsung Selfie space stunt. Did you see this?
It's a lot of S's. I didn't see this, no.
You didn't see this? No, you can fly your selfie into space as part of the Samsung competition.
Oh, God.
And
isn't there enough selfies on Earth?
Yeah, so no, it's going to be displayed on the Samsung S10 5G. Our ethos is do what you can't, and the Samsung space selfie is just that. We continually break the boundaries of what is possible with innovation, and tonight's space selfie launch is no different.
Do what you can't.
Do what you can't.
That's terrible.
That's the ethos of Samsung.
I mean,
interesting.
I understand it, but you can do it.
Yeah, do what you can't, Jamie. Well, you are. You're doing the Interplanetary podcast.
Exactly.
There's no way you could do that.
I can't do
anyway,
this.
Poor old Nancy Mumby Welk of Michigan.
There's no one called Mumby Welk.
Nancy Mumby Welk. I think Nancy is really the first name of Jan Davis as well.
Is it?
Yeah, by sheer coincidence.
Well, there we go.
There we go. So Nancy Mumby Welk of Michigan was startled when she found a satellite-looking device crashed on her farm. So this thing to look like a satellite had crashed on the farm, and it had carried Cara Delevingne's Selfie into space. And it was a high-altitude balloon with a mock satellite attached. And apparently Samsung had planned to land it round about there and was sorry for any inconvenience. So it's quite funny. But what do you think about having your selfie in space, Jamie? Do you want it?
Simply not interested.
You're not interested in your selfie in space?
Nah. No. Just think it's a load of rubbish. I just think we should be doing more important things in space.
Like trying to detect wormholes?
Yeah. Like sending me up to a wormhole. Like everyone's really scared of wormholes and then I'm like, I'll go. That's the kind of thing that we should be doing.
Yeah, I think you could sort of drop into a wormhole, then find yourself floating in between the library of your old home, trying to communicate with your daughter.
This is weird, Matt, especially because I don't have a daughter.
Yeah, well, how do you know? Until you dropped into the wormhole, Jamie.
Well, this is the kind of thing we should be doing, not sending selfies in space. Don't be ridiculous.
So, yes, next week, there's a whole bunch of Artemis news, Jamie. We'll do that next week as part of our Artemis special.
Yes, we will.
I saw Solaris yesterday, Jamie. I managed to get along literally at the last second.
Solaris at the theatre?
At the theatre, Jamie. It was absolutely excellent. Great bits of acting and great. The set's really good. So get yourself down.
You always did say that you were a big fan of thespians.
Yeah. Well, one of the actors who's in it, who's filmed in it, he doesn't actually appear live on stage, but he's actually part of the production. Yes. Is the guy off The Matrix, the guy that does the Mr. Anderson.
Oh, is he?
Yeah, he's in it.
Okay.
So that was quite cool. I only realised that this morning. I was like sitting there going, "Oh my God, it's him!" There we go. Anyway,
bit of trivia.
Yes. Good news for Europe as well. The engineers at the IABG test centre near Munich have completed the rigorous testing of ESA's Solar Orbiter spacecraft.
Get in, Germany.
Yes, so the spacecraft is going to get packed up now, stuck on an Antonov cargo plane, probably the one that I saw when I was in French Guiana.
Clang.
And that's going to go, literally yesterday, it will probably fly out to Florida this time, to be launched on an Atlas V from Cape Canaveral.
When you said literally yesterday, that's definitely something that a teacher would say. When does my report need to be in, sir?
Literally yesterday.
Yeah, you said it before.
Yeah,
I can tell
obviously. Yeah, but obviously you've heard it before as well.
Yeah.
And yes, 10 instruments on board, Jamie, and it will capture the closest ever picture of the sun. And it will fly over the poles and make detailed observations of solar activity. So that's going to be absolutely awesome.
That is beautiful stuff.
Now, before we go to our brilliant interview, I just wanted to have one little chat with you out there in listener world, all the Spodcats. We had a little chat on Discord, Jamie, this week.
Oh, yeah.
And it was about housing estates or sort of areas of your county that might have Apollo-themed road names.
Oh,
Have you seen this? So I found one in Devon. So near me in Devon, in Exeter,
Yes.
they have like an Armstrong Road, an Aldrin Way, a Collins Street.
I saw the Collins Street.
Yeah.
You put it up online.
So yeah, I put it up online, and that's quite cool, isn't it? So that you've got these little sort of housing estates with all these like astronaut names. Yeah. But to our horror, what we found is that some of the other people on the Discord were saying, well, we found some near us as well, and it would have things like Armstrong Way, Aldrin Street, and Apollo Way, and things like that, or
really?
And it would miss. Yeah, it was like, oh yeah, let's just forget Collins then and just have something else.
That's not cool.
So yes, if you have one near you, let us know. Let us know your own.
We should write a letter.
And then if you're angry enough about them missing off Collins, then write a letter to your MP and say, what the deuce?
I mean, it's a good time to write to your MP at the moment in England, isn't it? You know?
Probably is. We're just about to have a general election, everyone.
We are.
So,
let's
Jamie,
see if we can get this absolute tit out of office.
Whoa, Jamie, that's very disrespectful.
I don't care. You can edit it out if
I've been on a train with Boris once from Wandsworth Town.
Did you tell him he was a tit?
No, he was bumbling around. I'm not that rude, Jamie. I'm much more respectful.
I'm not. He's a.
Whoa.
Yes.
Right. Anyway,
you can put your train noise in there.
Jamie.
Yes.
We've got a brilliant interview. I love this interview. It's really different from the interviews that we normally do.
Who did you interview?
I interviewed Ghina Halabi, who is a research scientist and fellow at Wolfson College at the University of Cambridge, an astrophysicist. And she also has a really, really cool website called She Speaks Science, which is at www.shespeaksscience.com, which is...
Check it out.
You have to check it out.
It's an excellent website.
Anyway, Jamie, would you like to hear this beautiful interview?
Please roll the tape.
Écoutez. I'm joined by Ghina Halabi, who is an astrophysicist, a public speaker, and a storyteller. Thanks very much for coming on. Hello, how are you, Ghina?
Thank you, Matt. I'm very good. How are you?
I'm good, yes. I'm just looking out at the horrible weather, so I'm glad to be indoors doing a podcast.
Yeah.
So, first of all, you've got a very interesting background. Can you tell me how you got into physics and astrophysics in particular, and what your journey's been to get here?
Well, it's been quite a bit unusual, I say, but quite exciting. I grew up in a village in the mountains of Lebanon. It's called Barouk. I'm Lebanese. And as a kid, I was always fascinated by physics, batteries, that kind of thing. At school, I was doing well in science in general, but towards the end of my, high school, just at 1 year in high school, I found physics very difficult. I wasn't doing well in physics, and now in hindsight, I know what the problem was. It was a miscommunication with my teacher, who was a chemist by background, and so I couldn't feel really very inspired about physics. But then I changed schools, and one of my teachers there, my physics teacher in my new school, she was brilliant, and she realized that there's some potential there that wasn't being realized. So she decided to adopt me in a sense, and she started helping me, and then my physics grades started to improve. And for me, that felt like a victory, because felt so tough. It felt so difficult. I had no idea what was wrong with me. And then I realized that with a little bit of help, I could do really well. So it was a challenge that I could overcome. And that felt very exciting to me. And I thought, all right, that's what I'm going to do in college. So I did my physics degree as an undergrad. And then I applied for a master's degree at one of the very good universities in the region, which is called the American University of Beirut. So I was very lucky to get into that one because it quite opened very many opportunities for me. And then when I graduated with my master's degree, I had two options. One is to go off and teach. I had a very good job opportunity. or start a PhD. But my father, I remember back then, he told me that there's always a chance for me to go and teach or work, but very few chances like this will come in my path eventually to start a PhD. And so that was, the decision was made, but there was a problem that nobody had done a PhD in astrophysics before in Lebanon. So the PhD program had been recent. And I had a supervisor who's an astrophysicist, a brilliant astrophysicist. He graduated from Europe. And I decided, well, it's worth taking the plunge and see how it goes. And with his support and the support of the university and traveling to conferences a lot and meeting people, it worked out very well. And I graduated with a PhD in astrophysics. And then I came to Cambridge as a postdoc. So you see, I didn't have a plan to become an astrophysicist. I was interested in becoming a pilot in the Air Force or doing some sort of physics degree. And I thought this, because I was interested in physics in general, I started a master's degree in physics, and then I got to know and learn about astrophysics, and I was fascinated. So that's how I got into it.
Yeah, that's a really, really good story, because it's one that I think needs to get told more often, is that sometimes you can be struggling at a subject and it doesn't necessarily mean that that's the subject that you shouldn't be pursuing if it's the one that you're fascinated and you love. I think it's a very interesting story, and it actually kind of goes into my next point. That I was at the space conference and they were talking. That it was quite startling, actually. Some of the slides that they were showing when they were talking about this kind of STEM ambassadors, essentially, and they were saying that young children are really into science. They love science, and as they get a little bit older, you go, oh, is science important? They all say yes. 80-90% of them say yes, I love science. And then you say, who wants to become a scientist? And only sort of 20% of them do. And when you kind of drill down into why that is, it turns out it's because they think it's in the realm of clever people, that they don't see themselves as being clever in that sense. And I wonder if it's very similar to your story in the fact that you think you're struggling and then really there's something else. Do you understand that problem? Did you feel like you had that problem, and do you have any kind of ideas of how we kind of get over that hump? Because it seems to be one of those things that's holding particularly women back and ethnic minorities back because they see it as a kind of white clever person's domain, just purely on the fact we think of Einstein and we think of Feynman, and they're white men. So do you have any ideas of how we get over that hump?
It's a brilliant question, Matt. Really brilliant question. But let's unpack it a little bit. There's many different components to it. First, you say that students have the impression that they have to be clever to do it, which puts them off. Well, first thing, yes, of course, you have to be clever to do STEM subjects. You must be smart. You must be good at maths, at analysis, at critical thinking. Otherwise, you stand really no chance in succeeding in STEM at all. So we must be promoting science as exciting, as a driver for innovation, for growing the economy of our country, for developing our societies, but not as an easy subject. However, the problem arises, in my opinion, when the definition of clever gets warped. When clever becomes synonymous to white male, then that's a problem. When clever becomes synonymous to unfeminine, then that's a problem. And you see, I had a problem when I was growing up. I did feel that physics was difficult, and I'm happy I mentioned this story because there is a story of struggle. It's not easy. I had sleepless nights. I had great support from my parents because sometimes at exam times it was really stressful. It was incredibly stressful. So what we need to promote is the idea that, okay, it's thrilling, it's exciting, it has a ton of possibilities, but you cannot expect to just pop your feet over on the desk and say, okay, well, I could of course do STEM. You have to be a hard worker, and this is part of the excitement. This is part of what makes science so thrilling as a problem solving exercise. And then moving to the second part of your question, whether, or actually, you also asked whether I had faced this problem. I think I was very lucky that within my family, my parents never thought that I couldn't do science because I was a female. They never gave me that impression. And they always gave me the impression that, okay, if you choose to do this, it's not easy. And because you're doing it, we're very proud of you. So we will support you. So they never tried to underestimate how challenging this is. And they always made me feel that they're proud of me for trying so hard and trying to make it work. So this is the kind of background I come from. I don't know whether this is an issue I talk about often. I don't know whether parents these days try to cushion their children too much. They try to protect them. It's okay to feel vulnerable. It's okay to feel challenged. It's okay to stay up all night and study. It's okay to put all your heart and mind and being into working towards a degree. That builds character. It makes you who you are. And so parenting is, of course, a very essential component of it. And to the last part of the question, whether I have any idea how to overcome this problem, I think school teachers have an immensely important role to play. I think school teachers are overlooked in countries as major agents of change, really. School teachers have a massive role to identify talent and encourage this talent, whether in boys or in girls, but they are the gateway, you see, because when school children, students decide to self-select out of STEM, they are at school and school teachers would have a big impact on them. And that's what happened to me. My physics teacher realized that, hang on, there's something wrong there. That girl can do much better than this. So there is a problem. And she decided to help. She identified a certain talent. She worked on it with me and she saw a result. And as a result, I'm now an astrophysicist. So I think there's big, huge necessity to emphasize that the path may not be easy, but it is not impossible. So they should, when we tell them this, they would be ready. And this brings us to storytelling. I mean, what I do to encourage the next generation of students into STEM is with storytelling. Storytelling is very powerful because there's no story. There's always a struggle, there's always a failure, and there's always a hero. So I think by people just trying to highlight their struggles. We hear about brilliant scientists all the time. Rarely do we hear about their stories of struggle, the failures they've been through, and the obstacles they had to overcome. And I think by promoting these stories, we can perhaps start down that path.
Yeah, I think I couldn't agree with all you've said any more. I mean, I'm very passionate that teachers, and obviously you had one teacher who was extraordinary and pulled you out of, essentially made you who you were, really, and teachers are super important. The one thing that I always have. Personally, is I think that maybe we over-egg talent, and we sort of say to people, "Oh, you're talented at this," and then the rest of the children that are sitting there that haven't had this talent pinned on them maybe think, "Oh, well, there's no point me working hard in that area because I'm not talented in it, and therefore I won't ever achieve in it." And I think that that's almost like one of the most dangerous elements of even mentioning the word talent.
What do you mean by word talent?
Well, I'll give you an example. I work at a music college, and we have 30 students who come in, and they're all guitarists. Now, if you didn't believe that through hard work they could get better and through tuition they could get better, you may as well just have an audition at the very start and just choose the best 5 and say, well, you're the talented ones, that the other 25 may as well go home. But that's kind of how I feel that it happens right from a very early age. I remember reading a very interesting article about how chess players, you can have this situation where if you were at school and you start playing chess, that the kids that are very good at chess, first of all, are the least likely to become chess masters later on. It's the ones that weren't so good and learnt through pure grit and determination to get better, start accelerating past those that found it easy at first. And so that that virtually the human brain is so plastic and so malleable that you can take virtually any child and actually fulfill a potential that's actually enormous in virtually any child. Would you? I don't.
Look, I don't disagree at all with you. In fact, what I meant by talent is not just you give them a mathematical problem to solve and they like do it, straight away. But what I meant by talent is perhaps a certain curiosity, a certain willingness, a certain aptitude and excitement to get into these topics. Simply by asking questions, simply by probing deeper, by being curious, really, you could see an inkling that this person, whether they're good at maths at that point or at physics or chemistry or whatever, whether they're good at it or not, you realize that there is potential for them to be very good at it because there is this desire, there is this passion. We may overuse the word passion, and I mean a genuine feel of interest in the topic rather than, an indifference to the topic or to the subjects or to the, the scientific process.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I just thought I'd pry that one apart just a little bit because I totally agree with that analysis of it. I think that you need to have the interest in the topic to be able to realize your potential. I'm always very worried that sometimes you put people off. That sometimes people are put off, and I've seen it in my own kind of practice as a lecturer that it's quite easy to put people off because they do badly once, and it's like, no, but you've done badly this time, but you can learn from that failure, and if you're interested in this topic, please just keep going because you'll turn it round. You will turn it round, and it will start all clicking into place. And I just worry that sometimes people's interest. The data was quite stark. That the fact that they were all enjoying science, but they didn't want to do it as a living because they felt like they couldn't get they didn't have that potential when clearly they all did. These were a lot of the time these were the interviewing the sort of top 10% of the children that were doing well, and they thought they weren't going to be good enough to do an astrophysics degree. And that was the thing that I was trying to dig down and try and work out why that was.
Well, one thing that also helps is demystifying what a scientist does and what kind of lives they lead, professional lives. I think that would help as well. Like it answers to what you're saying about the struggles and whether they're fit for it or not. And if they imagine all sorts of things, like you think they're, like you said, they say it's not a career for me. If they know really what kind of career this is, maybe they decide otherwise, because it's quite fun, it's quite thrilling, it's a different type of career from being a banker or a consultant, or it has its challenges, and it certainly takes a lot of heart and a lot of passion to keep going, because it's just solving problems. And I think telling students really about that process makes it clearer in their heads. I don't know, maybe.
The one thing that I've always loved about maths and science, personally, I went down the path of being a musician for a long time, and when you write a song or are able to play a piece of music to a standard that you like, you get this rush of creativity, this kind of feeling of huge achievement. And I used to get exactly that same rush of huge achievement when solving a quadratic equation or doing something like that. But because you need that little spark of creativity, and I think that a lot of time people miss that science has got this huge connection to things like music and art, because it's an extremely creative process, and I think that should be something that could be said more often, I think.
Yes, absolutely. I agree with you. They're both components. They both include creativity. They're both avatars of creation and creativity. So yes, no, I agree. And art is helping bring science, making more science more accessible to the public. And we could certainly talk about that as well.
Well, you kind of have a very arty website that's a storytelling website. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yes. So the website is called She Speaks Science. It's at shespeaksscience.com. And the reason I started She Speaks Science is that once I was at a UN conference. I was attending a conference, and I was attending that conference because we were looking at ways to encourage women and girls into STEM fields and to the space sector. And I was very excited about that. And I thought, yes, I have so many ideas, so many solutions. Let's do this. And in that conference, there was an exhibition. And at one of the exhibitors was the German Space Agency, and they were giving out these do-it-yourself astronaut figures. It's a cardboard figure. You pop it out and you assemble a little astronaut. So I decided to take a couple of those on my trip home to Lebanon when I was visiting. So I took a couple of those. I was with my family. I said, okay, here's this figure. I want you to assemble it into a little astronaut. So they did. And I said, okay, let's give them names. And Matt, it's incredible. They all gave their astronauts male names. Even my mother called her astronaut Jad, which is my brother's name. I was equally shocked and amused. There I was, an astrophysicist, but they couldn't see that. You know, they love me. They love me terribly, and they love what I do, and they're so proud of it. And yet, all their astronaut names were male. And this is why I created She Speaks Science. I realized that, hang on, let's not get into the blame game. Of course, I mean, there's bias and everything, but maybe I have a role myself to play. And I created She Speaks Science because I wanted to let them know more about what I do in a way they could understand and appreciate. I mean, my siblings are both scientists. My brother is a chemist. My sister is a biologist. So we're very much a scientific family. But you know, within my extended family, they wouldn't necessarily know exactly what I'm talking about when I say I'm an astrophysicist. So I thought I should be more vocal and more visible about what I do. So I created She Speaks Science to give this agency and voice to us women in STEM, to bring our stories to the light and to show the brilliant science that we do, and above all, its social significance, the social significance of STEM research that women are doing all over the globe. So I started She Speaks Science because she has agency and she has a social duty. She speaks science because she understands the danger of a one-sided narrative. She speaks science because she wants to claim that narrative and that experience. She speaks science because simply she dreams of a world when, if she meets a random person on the street and asks them to close their eyes and imagine a scientist, they would imagine a young woman for a change. And I use stories as a vehicle to talk about science because stories engage, because our brains are hooked on stories. So this makes stories so powerful. And the vessel through which the stories are told on the website is through Shahrazad. Shahrazad is the storyteller of 1001 Nights. Obviously, me being of an Oriental background, I grew up on the stories and the tales of 1001 Nights. And Matt, I'm so happy to see now the community growing. She Speaks Science started as a platform where I write about my own research, but now we have grown into a community. I have women scientists from all over the globe contributing from the UK, from the US, from Chile, from Jordan, from Iran, from Lebanon, from Iraq. And it's been a thrilling journey. And it's really great to see it grow and to see the stories resonating with people as well.
I think that's a really fabulous way of getting that message across. And that whole idea of through storytelling, you kind of normalize it so that you take away that initial thought of oh yes, so and so's it's the same with doctors, isn't it? When you think of a doctor, you always think of a man, and it's like, well, and that's clearly a preposterous thought, but it's hardwired in there. But what a brilliant thing that you've managed to get this off the ground, and it's working its magic, I suppose. You wrote an article for Room magazine, which is a big European space magazine that comes out monthly, and you come up with an analogy between multi-messenger astronomy and this thing of having a more inclusive with the people that do astrophysics and are involved in space. Can you give me an example of where it's really obvious the benefits of having a more inclusive scientific community?
Yes. So the Room article came out recently in the hard print, and it will become available online in November, I think. So your listeners are able to check it out. I'd like to answer this by a quote from the piece that we've written. I've co-authored this with Professor Sarah Langston, who is an assistant professor of spaceflight operations at Embry-Riddle in the United States. And we start by saying that outer space is recognized as an environment, a tool, an idea, a kaleidoscope for viewing humanity from a diverse perspectives. The idea of the article is, how can astrophysics, astronomy, and space inspire us to be more inclusive? Of course, we can answer this question based on a huge amount of research on the benefit of diversity and diverse thinking in solving problems. There's a lot on that at the moment, whether through academic settings or business settings, or how diverse teams in businesses have generate high revenue and all of that. But I wanted to look at it from a more abstract way, as an astrophysicist, how this has changed me and changed my perspective to view diversity, and what lessons can we learn from that. And until the beginning of the 20th century, effectively all we could learn about the universe was from a tiny little window of the electromagnetic spectrum, which is visible to our eye, the optical window. But if you observe a star cluster, for example, if you observe it in the optical, okay, you would see the hot stars, the bright stars, the massive stars. However, that is not the whole picture, because different celestial bodies reveal themselves at different wavelengths. And only when astronomers discovered how to collect this light outside the part of the electromagnetic spectrum that is visible to our eye, were we able to learn more about the universe. When we discovered infrared technology, for example, it revealed a most electrifying view of the universe. Completely obscure objects were uncovered that we couldn't see before. and infrared, and we realized then that infrared bright objects were much more common than we thought, and than what we predicted. And then we could see the stars that are too faint to emit visible light, or they're too heavily covered or obscured in cold gas and dust for the visible light to escape them. So we were able then not to just see and observe the bright objects, but also the faint and the retired ones. And in 2015, the game went to a whole new level with multi-messenger astronomy, which is astronomy that is based on astronomical observation from different messengers or different signals. For example, if you're observing the solar system, you use certain interplanetary probes. But if you look outside the solar system, you need different types of messengers to be able to learn about it. For example, gravitational waves, which we witnessed not so long ago. And when we opened up this new world of gravitational waves, this whole bandwidth increased, and it provided complementary information that is fundamental to our understanding of the universe. So just like astronomy can now observe not only the loud and the obvious, but also the faint and the retired, also we need to tune in to be able to hear all human voices, the loud as well as the shy, because only this way we can get a full idea of, or the whole perspective, or a wider perspective of how the world works and how we should move forward with our innovation. It's essential. And in the article, we say that understanding the universe or improving our understanding of the universe, this possibility emerged only when scientists became capable of listening to diverse cosmic messengers and tune into the unique individual wave bands. And I think this is one way as astrophysics and space can inspire us to become more diverse.
Yeah, I think it's a brilliant analogy. I mean, it doesn't even seem counterintuitive, does it, to that a more inclusive set of people that have different ways of thinking about problems and different, particularly culturally, I think, thinking about problems in the narrative of how you grew up and understood the world sometimes can really give you deep insights on how things. It doesn't even seem counterintuitive. That's the thing that's the thing that always amazes me, that we're still in a situation which isn't as good as it could be.
Yes, I agree, and we have a long way to go. We have a very long way to go, because this is embedded in our culture, in our history. I mean, if you go to a library and you pick one of a book about scientists of the past, it's full of white men. I mean, this is because the science was only accessible to men in the past, and to be able to overcome the idea that this is a man's field, because look at the history and all the great scientists that we know about, to change that perception takes a long time, and it takes it's not only for the system to change and for the people to change their minds. It's about getting more stories out and having, give the people the opportunity to listen to these stories and learn about them.
Yeah, and I guess particularly very young people, so that they relate to it and think, yeah, I can do that.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And the more diverse our role models are, because you see, I always say this, that it's not enough for, say, for example, an American scientist to be visible, because then Lebanese kids will not identify with her, maybe, or Korean kids will not identify with her. you need diversity of role models, because otherwise you may run into the danger of alienating as well. They'd say, well, you could do it, I can't, because you have different circumstances than mine. So this is the importance also to highlight the diversity of role models, so that the image of a scientist becomes destigmatized in a sense, or we break the stereotype.
Yeah, and I guess your background actually does give you a responsibility, I suppose. Do you feel that responsibility that
Absolutely, yes. So when every time I'm in the media, particularly in Lebanon, I get contacted by Lebanese students marveling at the possibility of me having done an astrophysics degree in Lebanon, because we don't have big telescopes, and they associate astrophysics with big telescopes. And they say, how did you do it? Can I do it? How can I do it? What do you actually do? And this is when I realized that this is I have a role model duty to play. There's no way around it, because if I could do it, so can they. Because there's nothing special about me. I'm not a super genius of any sort. Coming back to your definition of talent, yeah? Demystifying this, I'm not a genius. I just worked hard. I had the right opportunities, and I took them. So just saying this, like, we're humans. We just work hard. We're really interested in the topic. We're passionate about it. And if you are, so can you do it as well.
Yeah, I mean, just tapping into that. I mean, what an honor that you have there to sort of tap in, that you're able to facilitate tapping into a huge human resource that currently sits dormant. It's really quite fascinating. Do you have a story on your website that you really, one that you either wrote or one that one of your collaborators wrote that's a favorite of yours?
I love them all. Recently, a rocket scientist who's an Iraqi refugee living in the United States, she fled the Iraq War as a child, and now she's a rocket scientist in the United States. That is one of the stories that I really like, that was contributed by Diana Cindy. And the story is called "Escaping a War to Conquer the Skies." Another story I really like very much is by a filmmaker who wanted to be a scientist, but she was told that she didn't have the right character for it, or the right gender. It's catching up with a girl left behind. So she instead of becoming an astronaut, now she has become a filmmaker, documenting the brilliant role of women in driving forward the innovation and the exploration of space. I love them all, really. And one of the articles that I like, Music of the Spheres, is I also like it a lot. This is one that I wrote. Yeah,
no, absolutely. Well, let's go to Music of the Spheres, because it's one thing that's always fascinated me as because I'm an acoustician by background. That was what I did my degree in, and it's something I've never truly understood. I've never had the chance to sit down with an astrophysicist and saying, how does it work? I mean, I know that sound doesn't particularly travel through space particularly well, because it's almost a vacuum. So when you talk about that you're able to use sound and how does that even work? So can you give us a very quick overview of using sound and acoustics to look at another way of another messenger of deep, digging into the cosmos?
Very well put. Can I tell you a funny story about that first?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I was in a social event once, and a lady I had just met came rushing to me, and she said, "Look, I just talked to a friend of mine. I told him that I met an astrophysicist, and he is asking me to ask you about the music of the spheres. He swears that stars affect us and they have music. Is it true? Is it true that stars affect us?" And I said, "Well, look, I have a story you might be interested in reading, which is called Music of the Spheres, but it's not what you think. It's not what you think." So to us, stars are mute. because their sounds cannot travel in the vacuum that separates. Stars are not quiet. You can think of them as giant musical instruments that are throbbing with sound waves. Because inside the star, there's high pressure. And as the high pressure in the star goes outward, it plows through the star, it compresses the gas as it propagates at the speed of sound. So these pressure waves or these sound waves bounce inside these gaseous interiors, making stars quite noisy. But not only that, they make the star quiver or pulsate. Sometimes we say oscillate. And this is a swelling and contraction. It's like you imagine a baby sleeping and their belly, as they breathe, their belly goes up and down. Yeah.
Yeah.
This swelling and contraction makes the surface of the star go alternatively cooler and hotter. And so this causes periodic changes in the brightness of the star, which we can detect with our telescopes. So this translation of the internal structure and the internal dynamics of the stars into something that is observable at the surface, this is astroseismology. It's a branch of science that studies these pulsations and the pattern, the light patterns they create on their surfaces, but studying that to identify the internal structure or to probe the internal structure of the star internally. And by noticing these patterns, by observing them with telescopes and noticing them, we can just analyze these patterns with the same mathematical techniques we use, for example, in geophysics to understand to probe the Earth's interior and study earthquakes, for example. And these waves in the stars could be pressure waves or could be acoustic waves. It could be pressure or acoustic waves, like ringing a bell, for example, or they could also be gravity waves, like those in the atmosphere or the ocean, and they're different because of the different forces that are involved in them. So when we observe a star, we notice these patterns, and the way we infer this information about the internal structure is by two different ways, or through two different observational data or observational techniques. One is studying the changes in velocity or spectroscopy. Just like this, the baby's belly going outward and inward. When the star's surface does that, the light becomes Doppler shifted. When the common example given here is how the pitch of the siren changes as it moves toward you and away from you. So this shift in light tells us about this motion on the stellar surface. The second observational technique is by observing the variation of light. This is photometry. So the photometry of the stellar flux or light, the variation in light. And this is really studying the variation in the brightness at the stellar surface, which could tell us, which would tell us about the oscillations. And then we can learn so much about the interior of the star. It's amazing. By applying these mathematical models, we can know the composition, how much helium it has, how much this region is rich in hydrogen or everything else. We can know more about magnetic fields and all sorts of things. So
wow,
fascinating.
Yeah, that really is. It's incredible. That the thing that's blowing my mind is, presuming that the Doppler shift with the surface of the star expanding and contracting is absolutely tiny. And how on earth have we built instruments sensitive enough to see that color change and and extract it from all the noise.
Yes, yeah, it's incredible, the human achievement, isn't it? We've come so far, Matt. Our instruments are incredibly, unimaginably accurate, and we can sense the minute differences in stellar flux, and it's all going to be better in the future. Our instruments are becoming more precise, more sensitive, and even the sky isn't the limit.
Yeah, and I'm assuming with space telescopes make this kind of observation easier, and the sort of very large telescopes that are being built around the world now make the observation easier. So yeah, and like you said, gravitational waves are now coming onto as a new way of detecting things. So presumably it's a very exciting time to be in astronomy.
It is, and there are always new missions and new satellites telescopes being launched, and it proves to be very exciting.
Yeah, presumably you, as an astrophysicist, you must be pretty excited about James Webb, or
I mean, it's taken forever to become to be launched, but it's getting there. And to be honest, people working on exoplanets and looking for extraterrestrial life is one of the most exciting aspects in astronomy at the moment. One of the sexy topics. So lots to look forward to.
In fact, the exoplanet guys have just won a Nobel Prize, haven't they?
True, yeah. Cambridge-based scientist who won partly the prize for discovering exoplanets as a PhD student.
I've got three very quick questions that are almost one-word answers. One that I heard on another podcast, what I just thought was such a great question that I'm going to have to use it here, is if you could bring back a person from history back to life, who would it be?
Well, I would probably give a different answer if I'm asked this over a dinner party, but to keep with the theme of the podcast, I would say it would be very interesting to bring back Arthur Eddington. Arthur Eddington is a British astronomer. He was based in Cambridge. Did you know that he was in Cambridge? And I used to work at the Institute of Astronomy, and I used to hold stars group meetings in his study. So you can imagine what a rich place to be in Cambridge. So Arthur Eddington, in 1926, I say he lamented in his book, The Internal Constitution of the Stars, how we can see the stellar surface, but the deep stellar interiors are so beyond the reach of human exploration than any other region in the universe. So he imagined we can explore any region in the universe except the interiors of stars. As telescopes probe deeper and deeper. And he would be thrilled, I think, if we bring him back, to know that we can now listen to the interiors of stars through Astral Seismology that we talked about. So I think he'd be very happy and amused to witness how far we have come since 1926.
Oh, absolutely. He's come up quite a few times in the podcast recently because I think it was the 100th anniversary of the eclipse that he used to basically make Einstein famous, wasn't it? That was not too long ago.
Also to see Einstein proved right again with the gravitational waves. But Matt, can I bring some other person as well from history? Right?
You sure can.
Bring Cecilia Payne to collect her Nobel Prize for figuring out what stars are made of, because it's very long overdue.
Yeah, no, we had her as a space legend of the week, so I absolutely agree. What a legend! In fact, didn't she? Indeed. Who did she? She fell out. She fell out with one of the big astronomer names, didn't she? She anyway.
Her PhD supervisor.
Yes. Yeah. It was, and eventually he had to eat his words and say, "No, you were actually right."
Yes, that's right.
So, what are you working on now? What's your?
At the moment, I'm also pursuing some stellar research. like literally stellar research. I'm not.
Yep.
But very much part time. I'm still involved with a group at the Institute of Astronomy in the University of Cambridge. But I'm equally thrilled by. I'm thrilled by the cosmic and the earthly equally, in equal measure. So at the moment, as as an extension to my work in gender advocacy in STEM, I have now become a program director at the Cambridge Judge Business School. I lead a program called Enterprise Women, which builds capacity and tries to help women who have started businesses to help them make their businesses sustainable and to scale up and to grow into CEOs and leaders of their companies. And besides, of course, I also work on She Speaks Science at the moment. It's my labor of love. I have less and less time to write stories on She Speaks Science, unfortunately, because of my many different responsibilities. And obviously because of the new submissions we're having from contributing writers. So I edit those before putting them on the website. But I will also, so this takes a lot of my time as well, and it's growing. And but I also would like to take this opportunity to invite your listeners, Matt, any female around the world who is doing STEM research, which I'm sure would be brilliant. I'd love to hear from her, to encourage every woman doing STEM research to be vocal and visible about her research, to contribute to She Speaks Science. All we ask for is a 700-word story, and we help with the editing, and it's all free, obviously. And we're also recruiting team members, because this is all pro bono work. Yeah, it's all based on voluntary work. Me and as well as my team. And we can always expand and grow our teams. And this is also an invitation to anybody who is interested in helping with our mission and who believes in what we're doing. And also people who are interested in hearing from us. They could sign up to the newsletter. They could follow us on social media. They could spread the word, because we really want to have impact, larger impact, because we believe this is certainly worth it.
Absolutely. What a fantastic idea. And I know we've got a lot of female listeners all around the world, and they often interact on Twitter and Instagram. So I'm very hopeful that we'll have an interplanetary spodcat writing in. I can't wait. So thank you very much for eventually making this work. It's been really, really lovely to talk to you, and I wish you luck with all those fantastic projects.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for the listeners. And I hope they enjoyed this, and I hope they got something out of it, and I hope they will go out and make a difference in their own way.
You can get involved in space no matter who you are, whatever your background. I think that it's really important. Or get involved in science and be an advocate somewhere and just go out there and do it.
Yes, I agree.
That was amazing.
No, do you know what? I absolutely did really enjoy that interview.
I might go back and listen to it a second time.
Yes, I genuinely really enjoyed that interview. It was really, really cool. And I have to say, I'm going to reinforce the point here, that no matter what your background, no matter who you think you are, if you love science, you can do science and just go out and do it. If you want to
so
do
many
space,
different things. It's not all rocket science, yeah? And to reiterate, the website is www.shespeaksscience.com.
Excellent. Jamie.
Thank you, Gina.
What are you doing this weekend?
I am going to see the new film called Doctor Sleep, which apparently is the one after The Shining, although I'm a little bit sceptical it's not going to be that good, but I'll tell you next week.
Oof.
And that's my only plans. What about you?
I am going to... I'm doing a Halloween party.
Oh, what are you going dressed as?
I don't know yet.
Well, now you're going to go as Event Horizon.
Oh, yes, I'm going to go
with the eyes all out.
Yeah, which character in Event Horizon should I go as?
What's his name? The guy who is the evil guy.
Sam Neill.
Yeah, Sam Neill. But you have to go with him as like an exploded guy.
Yeah.
Can you tell me, if I enjoyed this episode and I'm new to the Interplanetary podcast, where's the best website I can go to find out about not only social media, but about merchandise, events, and how I too can join the elite Patreon club?
You can join the elite Patreon club by going to www.interplanetary.org.uk. And if you pledged at a great enough level, you can do things like send in your own interviews. What? And send in your own blog posts.
You mean people get to be part of the show?
They can not only creators of the show.
Oh
so
my
opening
God.
that up. So if people want to get involved with that, that is absolutely cool.
Well, we need to give some shout outs.
I am going to give some shout outs. So ready?
Here we go.
Matt Gilliland.
Love Matt.
What a Chicago legend. Auden Varta.
Varta is king.
What a Norwegian legend.
Love
Anthony
Norway.
Peggs.
Oh, Peggers.
UK. Then we have Christopher Andreasen.
Springville.
Yeah,
That sounds American.
Yeah, I think he's from America.
We like you very much.
The awesome and very well informed, particularly on space architecture, Rob Annable.
Get in there, Rob.
Stas Shusha.
Wow. Where from?
The UK.
Oh, hello, Stash. Is it Stash?
Stas
Stas. Sorry.
Stas.
Hello, Stas.
Shusha. I hope we pronounced
Great
that right. Patrick Haywood.
Go on, Pat.
Another UK. James Goodwin.
Oh, James, you indeed are good.
What a good win to have him on our side.
Oh, he's probably heard that before, isn't he?
Michael Westbrook from Redmond.
Get in, Westers.
And now we have our Uber patron here, who's skipped up a level from Skylon to Ace.
Upgraded.
Yeah, Justin Roberts.
Justin, we want to extend our love.
Absolutely. He's been in contact for a very long time. Really, really cool. And Darren Fuchs, awesome.
Get in there, mate. Thank you, mate.
We have Sven Norhaus from Germany.
Oh, Sven,
Sven.
yes.
And of course, the wonderful Julio Aprea.
Literally, my favourite person in the space world. I said it.
You did say it, didn't you? From Argentina, currently in France.
Currently in France.
We have Karel Sim.
Oh, Karel
Sim
is
in
wicked.
From Estonia.
Yeah.
We have John Bennock.
Big John.
Big John. John Bennock. Another cool cat.
Thank you, John. Let us know, John, if you've been to the steps of The Exorcist in Georgetown.
Yeah, nice. And then we have the glorious, Mr. Legend himself, Dr. Bob Hodges.
Dr. Bob. What superlatives are left in the world?
There aren't many. A lot of the people that we've just done the rundown on there are fantastic contributors to the Discord. Come and join in. Absolutely love it.
Well, thank you, everyone. And we know we harp on about it every week, but we mean it when we say, without you contributing to the show, we wouldn't be here.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much. And if you want to go over to iTunes and give us a nice 5-star review, your words, not ours, then that would be great because it means that other people get a chance to find the podcast.
Absolutely. Let's wrap this baby up, Jamie.
Let's stitch it.
Bye-bye, Spodcats, and do enjoy the weekend.
And remember, if you're ever flying around a wormhole, pop in, say hi.
Oh my God. What happened to your eyes? Where we're going, we won't need eyes to see. What are you talking about? I created the event horizon to reach the stars, but she's gone much, much further than that. She tore a hole our universe, a gateway to another dimension, a dimension of pure chaos, pure evil. When she crossed over, she was just a ship, but when she came back, she was alive. Look at her mirror. Isn't she beautiful? Your beautiful ship. Kill its crew, Doctor. Well, now she has another crew. Now she has us.